All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yep. Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola. Joining us on the remote is Macworld's Michael Simon. In the studio with Leif Johnson.
Hey.
Our producer, Adam Patrick Murray.
That's me. It's not Dan Masoka. Surprise!
That's why I did the pause so people would go, what?
You know, he calls Dan the most important person in the room. He never says that about you, Adam.
Well, I was going to say Adam is the most important man in the room for today because Adam he did two things. He has two things. He's watching the Twitter and YouTube streams for your guys' comments and questions. So if you people are watching and you have comments and questions, let us know. Adam will chime in. The second thing that we'll probably talk about in our discussion is that he's been doing some camera testing.
It's true. So I have. Lots of it.
Yes, which pretty much takes us to our topic for today.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about, as Leif talked about, in our cold open, we're going to talk about the new iPhones. So if you guys who are watching have new iPhones, let us know what you got comments or questions, or even if you're like don't have them and like have comments or questions, let us know that too.
We already have some comments about their people's new phones.
Excellent.
So they're pouring in. Do you want me to start off with that?
Go ahead.
All right, let's start off with what you think about it, not what you think about it.
There we go.
Hilalia on Periscope. Sorry, I had to spell that out. Hello there. I have a Max and love the screen, but I don't feel any specific advantage over the X. No extra row of icons or any special software or feature that takes advantage of the large screen.
Yeah.
It's really all about the camera.
I would love to have more icons on my screen. I totally admit that. Yeah, that's 100% true.
You know, it's funny. Somebody posted on Twitter and went viral the original resolution of the iPhone next to, you know, the big giant Max, and it's like this little tiny icon size screen, but you still get 4 icons across.
Yeah.
You still see basically, you know, it's longer, but you're not getting any more information density like you can get on, you know, Android phones. A lot of them allow you to choose the resolution. You can choose full HD or you can choose QHD, whatever you want, quad HD. Apple doesn't let you do that. They say, you know, whatever, we have 8 zillion pixels, but we're only letting you use this many of them.
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the thinking is behind that, whether they just want to make it a consistent UI.
I think so, yeah.
And
I think it would be, you know, app developers would have to, you know, set their stuff to scale. So, you know, it's a whole thing. But I would prefer that.
Is that easier for a developer, that the fact that all these phones have set resolutions? And I don't know.
I mean, Apple would have to build it into Xcode, where they would allow the screens to, like, you know, Google does that inside of their developer
So it's easier
tools.
for Apple, in other words, because they don't have to figure out the scaling for developers.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. If you remember way back when, they didn't, like, they refused to change the resolution for so long. Like I think it was the iPhone 6 when it finally changed from the scaling of this resolution to somewhat of a different size, and then we got the extra bigger size, and then, you know, everything changed a little bit, but they still keep it in this little tight little cluster of resolutions that you can work with.
Yeah.
I personally think on some level it is usability. They think, you know, that, you know, when you're just putzing around, there is a lesser chance of you accidentally hitting the wrong thing if they're big.
Whatever, man. Here's a thought. I can decide my own damn usability.
Yes. But that's what I'm saying is I was leading into that. I would like to have the option for it, but I'm trying to state this is what they're probably thinking. So,
no, I get it. Yeah, everything they do is based on the masses and what, you know, most people would do, and most people they won't care.
Yeah,
like, I mean, you know, they probably set it to zoomed, and they missing out on all the extraness.
Actually, I got to say, I know a lot of people personally who have it even on the zoomed end of it. Where I'm the exact opposite. When I get a new phone, I want to make everything, the UI scaling, the text as small as I can, just to fit as much as I can.
Same thing.
Like, you know, I've been using Roman's, thank you so much, iPhone XS Max for the camera testing, and it driving me insane. I feel like an old person. Like, it feels like an old person, like, compared to how I'm usually using it on an Android phone. So yeah, it's a little different for me.
Yeah, I like to have all my most used apps on that first home screen, and it's basically the home screen and the second one is the way it usually works out. I'd love to be able to have them all just like immediately available on the front.
Yeah, I just want to get rid of them altogether and put them in a damn drawer, but that's another issue altogether.
I can't do. I want to. I want to spend.
Well, that's another.
Yeah.
Give me the choice.
Yes.
Hide like on my Mac. If you want to keep them on your desktop, which is bonkers, but some people do. You can. If not, you can put them in the folder. Like, why can't I do that?
I noticed John is one of those people that has a billion things on his desktop.
Yeah. I mean, to each his own. That's what some people like to do. That my desktop is as clean as anything, and so is my Android desktop. I have 4 apps and nothing else.
We got a couple potential gate discussions, because every iPhone has to have a new gate. Yeah. The first one, Dead Sea Genius is bringing up is about the LTE and Wi-Fi connectivity issues. Have any of you guys experienced any of those
I've
problems?
said before, as far as speed, that's a different thing. But Dog-Eared Books here in San Francisco, I go there a lot. It's in the Castro, and I usually have a hard time getting reception in there. I say I have a hard time. I don't get reception in there. I used to not get reception in there on my 7 Plus. So if I wanted to look up an Amazon review of a book, I'd have to go outside to see it and stuff. But
and then come back in.
Yeah, back in.
This guy just keeps walking back in and out, in and out.
But the other day on the iPhone XS Max, I was actually able to get reception within the bookstore itself. I was pretty impressed with that. I live on the Twin Peaks. There's a couple of dead zones where you can't really get cellular reception as you're going up Corbett. I didn't have a problem maintaining connection on my phone up there. So as far as strength, I think it's actually better now. As far as speed and everything, somebody else. But I will say from a feel perspective, nothing really feels different. But you want to tackle that, Mike?
Well, I don't have one.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
But based on anecdotally what I've read, it seems to be not nearly as widespread as prior gates like Ben Gate and Antenna Gate.
Yes.
Like I think it's a small little cadre of users, and maybe there was an issue with the antenna in the internalness or something screwy where they can bring into the store.
Because I have noticed a definite improvement.
Looked at and get it switched out. It hasn't reached the level of where it's in like USA Today. Once it goes there, then it's a big deal.
Our own Jason Cross, he put together some benchmarks that he asked us to run because we were in different locations on cellular performance, and the data that he collected showed an improvement in general. It's small in some instances, a little more in others, but in general, the Wi-Fi and cellular performance was better based on the data that we collected. My personal, I have T-Mobile, and it feels like the same to me based on my experience.
And I have Verizon.
So and I've also noticed, like, in San Francisco, you can find dead spots really easily. And I haven't had a chance to try out those dead spots and see if my reception has improved.
Now, is this compared to last year, the iPhone 10? Is that what everyone's comparing it to?
Yeah.
In his case, it would be. I'm more familiar with the 7 Plus. So
the story that Jason did was mostly in comparison to the 10, I believe. So, no, he has some numbers for the 7 because Life had the 7 Plus. So, yeah, it's both the 10 and the 7 Plus. So,
I mean, I have my own experiences switching Android phones every 2 weeks, and I can tell you that, like, one manufacturer will say, "Oh, we get a gigabit a second," whatever it is. Using it every day, you're not going to see a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's not until they roll out 5G. That should be massive.
Yeah.
But right now, these kind of incremental modem changes and speed, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
Well, breaking news: we have Daniel Masaoka in the chat. He says he's the man of the people today. He's in the chat with us.
The most important person in the
he's
chat.
Usually the most important.
He's the most important person in the chat. But then the other gate we should talk about that. Tyler brought up over on YouTube is Makeup Gate, Camera Gate. I haven't seen any.
Trying to make gates.
Yeah, right.
What's Makeup?
Yeah, seriously, what is this?
So yeah, I've seen it in a couple of spots, and then Lou over on Unbox Therapy just uploaded a video on YouTube about the beautification of the front-facing camera. So supposedly, it has what a lot of other phones, Android phones, have is it tries to beautify the skin of the people it's taking the photo of. I haven't noticed it on the back cameras, and I think I didn't watch the whole video.
It's usually a selfie thing, at least on Android phones.
I've noticed my skin looks different when I take selfies. But
so this is an automatic thing? You can't turn it on and off?
Yeah, according to him, he like I said, I didn't watch the whole video, but at least from the first half, it looked like it was something that he couldn't adjust, and it was just on by default, and it was somewhat aggressive. I mean, I've seen plenty of beautification modes on these Android phones as I've tested them, but usually you can turn it off or at least do some sort of slider.
It's a slider.
Yeah. So that's nice.
But it seems odd that if that was happening, why wouldn't Apple tout it as a feature?
Right.
I
thought it was just an improvement to the camera, honestly, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he shows some side-by-side examples and then stated some other side-by-side examples that he picked up on Reddit. So, it's definitely, I haven't tested it out yet. I don't really typically do the front-facing camera in my camera testing stuff, so it's something I can try to look at, but, who knows?
Well, if that's true, that's a pretty big gaffe, if you will. I mean, I don't know why they would do that surreptitiously and not say, here's a button that you can turn beautification on or off. Like, that's weird.
See, and like I said, I say again, I thought it was just because I've noticed that just the backgrounds and everything look better with the 7 than it did with the 7 Plus. So, I just thought it was like a camera improvement. And, I'm not necessarily saying I feel like my skin looks beautiful, but but yeah, I mean the details seem clear. That's mainly what I was looking at. So.
Yeah, typically they smooth it over. They maybe lighten the skin color, add a little bit of pinkish.
It's all very very whitewashing.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that.
You can make your eyes bigger and stuff. It's a little disturbing, to be honest.
It really is. Some of them, depending on the manufacturer, some of them can be very aggressive. Yeah, for sure.
You can make yourself look basically like an anime cartoon.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, I guess that's another gate to add to the pile.
Well, if that's the case, that's gonna be a bit of a big one, because that's the kind of thing that can go viral on Twitter and just go everywhere. If Apple is, I mean, that could be it's sexist, it's racist. I mean, there's a whole that opens up a ton of doors that Apple does not want to open up.
Right, and I can't.
So that seems very surprising to me that they would be doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, to keep going, we got a question on...
What was the third gate?
They're happening all the time. Don't worry, there'll be more.
There's a new gate every minute.
Over on Periscope, It's Magnum is asking, is the Max too heavy?
No.
No,
I don't. With the 7 compared to the 7 Plus, which is what I always have, I don't notice much of a difference at all. Honestly, yeah.
I use, I have the Note. There it is. I have the Note here, and I use big, giant Android phones all the time. And I gotta say, I was actually impressed with how Apple distributed the weight on the Max when I picked it up for the first time. A lot of times these phones are a little top heavy, they're a little bottom, depending on where how the stuff internally is arranged. And I think if you look at the tech specs, the Max is a little bit heavier than the Note, maybe by 5 or so grams. But it doesn't feel that way. It's a nice balance. Yeah. Where the Note, sometimes I feel like I'm going to drop because it's a little top heavy, and I didn't get that from the Max. I thought it was distributed well, and it felt a little bit lighter than even it should.
No, I totally agree. It feels perfectly balanced.
I'm actually surprised you say it's as heavy as a Note, because it does not feel heavy like a Note.
I was surprised when I looked it up too, because I thought it was a little bit lighter, but I think tech specs, it's, I don't know, not much, 5 grams or 4 grams, but it is a little bit heavier. And like I said, Apple did a good job of kind of distributing that weight to the corners or however it did it.
Another question from Marco. Are we really sure it's worth moving from an iPhone 10 to a 10s?
I don't think it is at all.
I know a lot of people have said, I know that people that have iPhone 10s have looked at the camera and said that they are a little envious of that, but I've heard nobody that's just I gotta have it and stuff.
Yeah, I think if you have it, I mean, if you're on the upgrade program, fine. You know, it's not going to cost you necessarily anything more. If you want to get the Max, okay. But if you're going to pay for a 10s and then sell the 10 and trade it or whatever, I wouldn't bother.
I mean, that is kind of the big thing is the option to have a bigger phone, right? I mean, I could see somebody going from the 10 to the 10s Max, but yeah.
Or even the R, because A, it's cheaper. It'll save you a little bit of money per month, and it has all those colors, and, you know, it's a little bit different design, I guess, slightly with the edges and the back panel. But I think most people will be happy with their 10 for another year.
Well, you know, the iPhone 10 came out before I came to Macworld, and so, you know, that was actually my thinking. I was like, the 10 sounds impressive, but, you know, I didn't, you know, I liked my bigger screen, and so that smaller one, and I know because it was long and everything like that, but I just, you know, couldn't do it. But now that I have that in that, yeah, I'm really liking it.
Yeah, the Max is basically a 7 Plus with a bigger screen. They're nearly identical when you hold them.
I will tell you that you know, I was really afraid, and you know, there's a lot of people that I was going to have a hard time adjusting to the iPhone 10 gestures, and that was always kind of embarrassing when, you know, hey Roman, let me see your phone, and I was like, how do I do this? But luckily, within a day, going back to the 7 Plus felt weird and awkward and old fashioned. So I was amazed.
It's super intuitive the way they did it.
Yes.
Android has something similar on like 3 phones now, but the Pixel's coming out, so that'll kind of speed it up, the adoption rate of it. But it's similar. I think the Apple's method is a little bit more intuitive than Google's.
If you like to play games on your iPhone and you have an iPhone 10, you might want to consider the iPhone 10s, because we found that metal performance is improved a lot.
Okay.
Over on the 10s. The graphics performance is a lot better. I mean, that's kind of it's like your only sole reason to upgrade really from the 10 to the 10s is if you're heavily into maybe graphics performance, you would do that.
I mixed around a little bit with the AR stuff, and that seemed vastly improved.
Right,
like, I don't know who the heck uses
that.
Yes,
exactly.
Right, because of the neural engine.
Yeah, that was crazy smooth. It was very impressive, more so than I've seen on any, you know, Tango or AR Core phone on the Android side. It was very impressive.
Which actually, just have to figure out interesting stuff to do with AR.
Yeah, Leif, didn't you just put up a video on the YouTube channel about the measuring app or whatever?
That would be Jason.
Oh, that was Jason.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Thank
he's not here to talk for it, but we did
we
put
always
up a video
confuse
on
Leif and Jason. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I didn't shoot it. You know, I saw it. It was there. We got Philip over on YouTube saying that they can't wait for the new Elder Scrolls game.
Oh, I can't either, and I'm really trying to. And I have to tell you, I've been trying to get a preview and that and everything, and I thought I had a pretty good relationship with Bethesda, but it's been like pulling teeth. But yes, I will be on that when it comes out. So,
and it's Maxim. Back over on Periscope is asking, can you guys use the Max one-handed? How do you guys feel about the one-handed?
Yes, you can use it one-handed. It's of course, you have to remember, I'm used to using the 7 Plus. I have zero problems doing it with one hand. And
it depends obviously on your hand size, but Apple's done a fine job of kind of pushing the navigational elements downward. I mean, I think they can do better in that regard. But you can. Your fingers are going to get a little tired, but it's definitely usable with one hand if you have, you know, a regular sized hand.
I mean, the thing I always miss, you know, when I have to use an iPhone for a week around this time frame is that the back button is in the top left corner of everything.
Yeah, that's
on Android strange. It's usually way more within reach. So I do miss that functionality.
I mean, you can do the swipey thing on the home indicator for switching apps and to go back and stuff, which is nice. But yeah, if you want to hit that button, it's in like no man's land if you're using it with one hand.
Yeah.
I will tell you that another thing, going from the 7 Plus to the iPhone 10X Max, is I accidentally take screenshots a lot, and when I'm trying to hold or do something, I think it's like I'm trying to adjust the volume or something, or it's probably a lot of me still adjusting the Face ID. But yeah, because
didn't they change that in 12? No, they didn't. I thought they changed it in some way.
Where it's a side button and the top volume button. That's what you do, but it's when I'm kind of holding it that way.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you still accidentally take
Yeah.
What's the gesture to make the screen move halfway down?
I actually didn't remember. On the new navigation system. Yes. I was like, "Ooh, I don't know how to do it."
I looked it up actually, and I was having a hard
time.
Isn't
it a double tap or something?
Well, it was a double tap on the home button.
Yeah.
Isn't it don't you double tap on the screen now when it comes down?
Is that what it? I don't remember. On the Plus phone, so it's essentially the same size as a Plus phone. So
or maybe you swipe up from the home indicator or something. It was something, or swipe down or something. It was something like that.
So on phones with the home button, you double tap the home button.
Yeah.
And then the screen would move down halfway. But now I don't remember. I don't know what it is on the.
Yeah, it is there. I don't know how many people either A, know it's there, or B, use it.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of Android phones have one-handed mode as well, where it literally takes the screen and shrinks it to a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I always forget it's there and never use it. I'm sure most people do. Yeah.
There's also there was a Microsoft keyboard that you can install it was made for thumb one-handed.
Yeah, I think they got rid of that.
There's an Apple one in here. I accidentally activated it the other day. I had to turn it off, so it is in there.
Well, William says swipe down.
Is it swiped out from the middle of the screen?
On the home button? On the home, whatever the bar. The line.
Is it doing it?
Maybe you have to turn it. Try it on the bottom, the very, very bottom, Leif.
Yeah, that's a camera.
Speaking of navigation, we have Carlos Martinez on YouTube. He says he's blind and he's asking about VoiceOver. Do we know anyone who's tried out VoiceOver on the new phones?
I have not tried it.
I have not tried out it. Yes.
Has it changed?
I think that's what they're asking to see if it's faster or it's the same.
I don't know if it's more responsive. As far as I know, they haven't implemented any changes, but I haven't tried it for performance sake.
That's interesting, though. That's something to look up. Yeah.
Also, Mark is asking, did any of us get the 512 version? Do we know anyone who got the 512 version?
Yeah.
I had the 128 for the 7 Plus, and I realized that I was only using like 48 gigabytes on that thing, so I literally just got the 64. I got the cheapest one.
I'm convinced that Apple didn't actually make any 512 phones because nobody wants one. That's why they keep saying, oh, it's out of stock, because they haven't actually manufactured one.
I got a 256 one, so.
256.
Right,
I don't know. It's not like I'm filling it up. I mean, I still even think that's way too big.
It's
especially
crazy because we stream everything.
Well, and I don't know how it is on Apple Photos, but at least on Google Photos, usually when I make sure it's backed up to the cloud, I keep it off of the device, so not even Photos, so.
It's a little less straightforward with Apple Photos than it is with Google Photos, but you don't need to keep anything on the device anymore except your apps.
Mm-hmm. Well,
we stream music, we stream movies, we have photos in the cloud, messages in the cloud. Like, what the heck do we need to have 128 gigabytes of storage on our phone for?
Well, I'm basically the family documentarian, so I'm the one who has to shoot the videos and stuff, and so I always end up shooting a lot of video, and that takes up a lot of space, and I often shoot it at 4K. So
Yeah,
it's still insane. It's like Apple said, all right, you don't want 16 gigs anymore? Here, have 200. Now shut up.
Yeah. We've got a couple more questions. Maxim on Periscope's asking, could you ever go back to a 3.5-inch iPhone, but iPhone 10 style, so no bezels? Like there's a lot of people out there who miss a really small phone.
That would be a really small phone.
Just to remind people that iPhone SE is no longer available. That's
4 inches.
Yeah,
I think 3.5 is way small.
I think the Face ID stuff would actually work very well with a small phone. It would actually work. I mean, it'd give you more room than a home button would. But I wouldn't want to go back to it. Put it that way. I have an iPhone 5 hanging around that I use for testing things, and
man, is it small.
Yeah.
Like
I like
trying to
big
type
phones,
on
and I
that thing,
cannot
I feel
lie.
like I don't know how the heck I ever used that on a regular basis.
Well, even when the original iPhone came out, I was like, "Oh, I can't wait until the bigger phones become cheaper and more affordable." So it's just, but even when that was the standard, I was like, "Oh, please, somebody get this! Somebody come out with a bigger phone."
Yeah, I remember those commercials. Apple used to like, "This is the perfect size. Look, your finger reaches over here. We don't want it ever bigger than 4 inches." Like, come on, get out of here.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. So we got a couple questions about the XR. If we want to pontificate there a little bit. George over on Periscope's asking, do we expect to have good supply for the XR when it comes out? Like, when they do pre-orders. And then Prizzy by Lack on YouTube. Do you think the XR will be faster than the XS, considering lower resolution of display and same processor? What do you think? Will Apple slow the iPhone XR down on purpose?
That's a good question.
I think we all think that the XR is going to end up being the number one seller for Apple.
That's not. Right. That's a safe bet.
Yeah. So because it's more affordable, but also because I tend to think that the performance will almost be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say whether it will be exactly the same, without having.
So what's the big differentiator? Just the screen then?
Mostly
it's
just
the OLED versus OLED versus LCD. Basically, I mean, it's also 720p versus 1080 and 1440p. But
do we know how much RAM is in the XR?
3.
And the X
three versus 4, I believe.
Right, and that could be an influencer in performance. So.
Well, sure, but you also have a lot less pixels to drive, so you shouldn't see too much of a difference with animations and app switching and all the things that you use for RAM. The XR, I think, to answer the first question, I think it will be constrained. It's going to be based on color. Like nobody wants yellow or whatever the heck the color that nobody wants is. They'll have a ton of those. Black will be gone, white will be gone. The popular colors will sell out quick. I think Apple delayed it for 2 reasons. 1, to sell a little more of the expensive ones, and 2, to have a massive stock when this thing releases. Right. But they're going to sell. They're going to sell.
It's going to be the holiday phone.
Yeah. So I think within 2 hours or whatever, a half hour, however quickly these things sell, it'll slip to 3 to 5 weeks, and it won't be available through the holidays, like on a next day basis until sometime in January. They're going to sell like 50 million of these things. I guarantee. And it's a decent price. It's not a great price. Compared to the 10, it's a great price. Mm-hmm. Right. It's still $750. It's still more than the 8 was to start.
And that's $750 for the 64 gigabyte.
For the 64 gig,
yeah.
Yeah, it's $799 for the 128.
128. It doesn't have. There's no 512.
There's 256. There's no 5. The 512 is 900. The 256 is 900.
Yeah.
Philip on YouTube's asking, what is liquid LCD anyway?
It's a marketing term.
Right. It's totally
liquid
marketing.
retina is what
it's
they're
ridiculous.
calling it.
It's like retina.
It's the same LCD screen that we've had for the last 4 years, except now we have a notch.
It's called
That's what liquid retina is.
That's funny.
Yeah, I actually wasted a little bit trying to figure out what was really different about it when we were writing the launch day. I mean, the announcement day. So
I can guarantee that it will be a fantastic LCD screen. If you look at a phone like the LG G7 that has an LCD from this year, and it's one of the better Android phones around, but the iPhone's just going to crush it because Apple, they've been killing it with LCDs forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now they have this whatever new manufacturing process they did to make their corners all curved and the notch and all that stuff. It's going to be an awesome screen. No one's going to pick it up and say, oh, this isn't as good as an iPhone 10, I don't think.
I mean, they've been making LCD screens for 10 years now, so
they got that down.
Yeah, they got it. We have a pointed question for you, Leif, from Ron. They have a 7 Plus, and they're wondering if the keyboard on the XS Max is significantly larger.
That's a good question, but I will say that I haven't done any kind of real test on it, but I don't feel any different. I did not feel like there was. And matter of fact, I will tell you, maybe it's because I have big ass thumbs and fingers. I feel like it's actually a little bit more accurate on the 10X Max when I'm just typing by one hand. So yeah, I I was pleasantly, I like this keyboard, and it's possible that it does go a little. It's a very small, imperceptible difference, but with my fingers at least, it makes it a little bit more accurate. Because I honestly, I have to admit, I used to typo a lot on the 7 Plus, but I don't as much anymore. I typo a lot in general, but it's so
you're not getting too much extra width, so I'm not sure how much the keyboard will feel much different between the 7 Plus and the Max.
If it is, it's very small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since the Max doesn't have a chin, does it feel different? Is there a different
It took a little bit of took a little bit of getting used to, and the stuff at the bottom of the screen is. But the thing is, when you type on it, like let's look at Twitter here, they actually give you a little bit of a lip, to kind of make up for it. So as you can see, there's a. You have a spot for the keyboard and a spot for the microphone, and so that kind of makes up where the lip was. So they know that you're used to it, and that's a little bit more natural position for your fingers. So they kind of compensated for that. So, yeah.
Boo! I say, give us more space to see. Damn it!
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is you don't want it too low, because then the phone, I guess, if it's too low, the phone has to be higher up on your hand, and it kind of makes it imbalanced.
Yes.
See, that's how I use phones.
There's an ergonomic reason.
That's how I use phones though, and so it feels way too high for me personally. I also like a really small keyboard. But Daniel Masaoka, the most important man who's not here, is he kind of grips it in the middle. So yeah, he wants the keyboard higher. So I am bummed that Dan's not here, because he bought an iPhone XS, and this is his return back to the iPhone after a year and a half.
This has been quite a saga with him.
yeah. So you'll have to wait for next week for his take on it. But we got a lot of people asking about the camera. So I think we can roll into that. What do you think, Leif, so far?
Oh, I've been taking I've been taking a lot of photos, and what I think more than anything that I have been impressed with is the low light stuff. And I've posted, I've retweeted a couple of that stuff on the Macworld account. But like, if you saw those ones that I was doing of the flowers, that was actually after sunset. So, and the fact that it looks that bright and that clear, that was after the sun had gone down, and I was pretty amazed by that. I also posted, I didn't retweet these, but I took a couple of shots, basically in the Castro, and it was dark in person. It was actually dark, but with the lighting, it was clear and crisp. You can tell from the the light from the cars and stuff. It was actually dark, but everything came out beautifully and clear. And if I had used a slider and adjusted it, I could make it look like as dark as it really was. But the natural light, and it actually gave this. If we're going to talk about beauty gate or whatever, it gave it made the setting look a lot more beautiful than it was, and really brought up those last little hues of the sunrise and stuff. One thing with portrait mode, because I have no hair, I have noticed that when I try to do those artsy fartsy black and white shots, I always have like this little skin mohawk at the top of the screen. So it's really weird. So I really have to hold the phone away for me to do one of those portrait selfies that are all artistic, where they black out everything else. Otherwise, I have this little white mohawk on all my stuff.
You think they would have tested that out on Johnny iPhone?
Exactly. Yes.
Also, Skin Mohawk, it could be the name of your new band.
I know, right?
I like that.
Yeah, they've been testing too much with Craig Federighi. This big.
Hey, if you could do it with that hair, you can do it with any. Yeah,
that man has hair. I wish I had that. But well, okay. So when portrait mode came out, it was labeled as beta. Is it out of beta now?
Yeah.
Does anyone know officially?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the thing is, I've been playing with the portrait mode, and I was kind of wishy-washy on it to begin with, leaning towards I don't really like it. Yeah. And my opinion of it hasn't changed at all. I when I see other people's portrait mode pictures, especially the ones with I forget what it's called. Is it the one where it blacks out the whole...
the stage lighting?
Stage lighting.
Oh, I hate that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, where I get the skin
Photoshop.
mohawk.
It just looks like bad Photoshop, and I mean, the funny thing is I look at it and go, there's trying to imply that this is dramatic, right? But to me, I just sit there and go, wow, that's bad Photoshop. That's what it just looks like that to me.
It's
so
pretty bad.
It can look pretty amazing, but it's like 1 in 20 times.
Well,
right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and you have to have the specific lighting that will kind of almost match that same
Yes.
effect too.
Right.
So, like,
Right.
if it's backlit, it doesn't make any sense that the rest
Yeah.
of you is dark. Yeah.
sometimes I look, and I'll see every once in a while one that go, and I'll go, oh, that's nice. That's one of the nice ones. But
it's
most
usually
of the
the
time
ones
I
on their billboards,
Right.
right? Yeah.
But then I'll come to one and go, ooh, that's
Like actually on BART a while ago, they had a campaign where they had a bunch of portrait mode
Yes.
with stage lighting set up, and yeah, about half and half. I'm like, oh wow, okay, that does look good. But then the other half, I'm like, why did they print this one? That does not look good.
Yeah.
That point where she's on like the BART or the Muni, or actually, and somebody takes a photo of her, and it looks like gorgeous, and and it shows that she's just like on the subway or something, and it's like, I can't see that really happening in real life.
Yeah.
And it was just like a snapshot too.
No Android phones have tried to copy it yet, so.
That says a lot.
So,
Are you talking about the stage lighting? No,
Yeah.
there is
the
one.
portrait
Yeah, there is one
poster one.
that blacks out. I can't remember off the top of my head. One of them does, but yeah, it's not good either.
But it's not like Samsung. It's not it's not something that they're rushing to copy. Then I don't know which phone. I can't remember. I can't think of one off the top of my head that does it. But maybe you're right. You're probably right.
I was going to show Roman one of my skin mohawks just now, and it was funny. I realized I deleted them all.
I don't think we're allowed to show that on YouTube.
So
skin mohawks.
All I have is the really good one that out of maybe like 30 that I took, I ended up keeping one. So that tells you,
So for me, I've been taking it around. I've been lucky to have Roman's 10
Adam's
and
been
10s
doing
Max.
Yes, people who follow the website know Adam does a lot of our camera shootouts. And
For Macworld and PC World.
For Macworld and PC World, not just iPhones, but he does a lot of Android phones. So he has kind of a wide scope of products that he's seen and cameras that he's tested and stuff. So he's been, for the past few days, he has the iPhone 10s. See, I almost said XS. The 10s Max.
Done pretty good at teaching myself.
Yeah, I almost said the 10s Plus.
Yeah.
10s Plus. Yeah.
But the 10X Max, and he's been testing it, so he's going to be putting together a comparison for us.
Yeah, the video hopefully should be live next week.
So but if you can, I can give some top general
level
impressions and stuff.
takeaways. Yeah, I haven't dug really deep into yet, but I've loaded a lot of the results that I've had so far. And the first thing I'll notice is that the field of view is just a tad wider on the new phones. Enough so that like I think it definitely adds to it. Like I can't remember. I think Jason looked up the numbers for me, but it was like from like 26 to 23 millimeter, something like that. And you would think that that's not a ton, but especially when you get to the shorter millimeter ranges like that, even a couple makes a big difference. And I definitely did feel it. Have you noticed it at all, Leif?
Yes, I have. Yes, and especially because I like to take these wider shots and stuff, and I like it's but wide and macro kind of shots, and I've noticed that the camera is doing a lot more what I want it to do when I take photos, and that makes me very happy. So,
is that smart HDR stuff you're talking about?
I mean, in my way, it's framing it the way I want to see it, as opposed to.
What do you mean?
I mean,
what do you like? How is it different than the 7 Plus? I guess is my question.
There were a lot of times, I guess, where it would seem a little bit too constrained, too flat. Yes, whereas just that little bit of extra push is enough to make it go for what the type of depth that I was trying to go for. And yes,
so you're not talking about the quality. You're talking about the composition.
Yeah, yes, a little bit of both actually, but yes.
So I'll definitely say in low light, I mean this thing definitely does a lot better. I actually took
that's good to hear.
Yeah, so my mother-in-law was in town, and one of the places we took her was to the USS Hornet, which is a aircraft carrier based out of Alameda. So I was like, oh, this is going to be great. There's a lot of dark nooks and crannies and levers and pulleys and little readouts and stuff like that. And there were a couple times where even the 10 wasn't even able to get focus. Like things were just out of focus because it was too dark. And the 10s had hit it very well.
That's awesome.
We specifically had a question from Spos-tastic. SPOS fanatic. I'm sorry. This is horrible. And they're asking the low light comparison to the P20 Pro, which is kind of I do a series called Last Cam Standing on PC World. That's finding the best smartphone camera in the world. And yeah, the P20 Pro is the current champion, and it has a thing called a night mode where it takes a series of images for around 4 or 5 seconds and stitches them together and like has crazy results. I wouldn't say the iPhone XS Max is anywhere near that because it's not doing that level of stitching.
That's also got a third camera, right? The P20.
Yeah. So I mean, it's but in the normal mode without that night mode that the P20 Pro has, I mean, it's probably better. I haven't done the face-to-face testing on that. That'll come in the next episode of Last Cam Standing in a couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an improvement over the 10. And I will have to say, though, at the time that I tested the 10 last year, I actually didn't think it was that great to begin with. So
I remember that.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course it's the best iPhone camera, at the time, but compared to the other ones at the time, I also didn't feel like it was anywhere near the top. Obviously it wasn't for our winning. But the 10S is definitely a large jump over it, and a lot of it has to do with that HDR. That computational photography that some Android phones have been doing is a huge thing. So it takes the multiple frames, kind of stitches together the best ones to make the best image. I mean, it's the future of smartphone photography for sure, and you can definitely see it in play here. The biggest thing is the dynamic range. You're able to really get a lot more out of this new sensor. Like I was looking at some of the examples and showing it to Dan. I shot down this alley, and at the end of the alley, there was the alley was dark, but at the end of the alley was a house that had direct sunlight on it. And in the X's shot, it was blown out. It just looked like a white building. But on the 10S, like you had color, you had all the details. Like that's
cool.
It is definitely a big improvement. It's not as strong as something like the Pixel. I've saw a lot of comparisons of like, oh, the Pixel 2 still beats the iPhone XS. And
Pixel 2 is a year old, son.
Yeah. I mean, and hey, maybe it does. I haven't done that direct testing, but also it's a flavor thing. How much processing do you want it to have? Because HDR can definitely make it look fake and really pumped up. And I actually think personally the Pixel 2 goes a little too far. So I think the 10S
Thank you. I've always thought that when people have played that up.
Yeah, I actually think the 10S is a great spot where it's like, no, it's holding on to all the information it needs to, but it's not going too far. The bigger thing though is that when I look at them side by side so far, you're getting straight out of the camera like a lot more punchier photo on the old camera, meaning you don't have to do like a ton of processing in Instagram.
I always felt like I had to adjust stuff on the older cameras. I don't as much here.
Yeah, well, actually, I think for me it's the opposite. There's definitely more dynamic range, so you have to add more contrast back in, which is what I love to do. I mean, that's what I want as a photographer. I want more dynamic range so I can make that choice. But straight out of camera, people who don't know what they're doing, the most people are going to say, "Hey, wow, that the other photo actually looks better because it has more contrast. It has more like the blacks are a little darker and the whites have a nice glow to them." So I actually would be surprised if in a blind setting people would actually prefer the old one because there is more contrast baked into it.
Interesting.
I mean, that's not what I prefer. Like I said, I want more dynamic range, but that's that's kind of different on that end. I mean,
What's your guess for the DXL Mark score? Quick.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't even looked. I bet I don't.
I don't think it's out yet. So this is just hypothetical.
It's not out yet. I bet it scores number 2 right behind the P20 Pro. I bet that's where it's going to land. I mean, it is an outstanding camera for sure. I mean, in every way, it is a huge upgrade from the 10. I definitely appreciate it, and I mean, there's people in the chat who are saying that they love it. Even let me find his name.
The P20 scored a 109. By the way,
on DxO, Mark. And the iPhone 10 got a 97. So I'm setting the over under at 105. Over under.
Okay, that's good.
I'm gonna go 106.
At the time,
you think it'd be like a
97 score was really high.
I mean it's always when the new one comes out, it's always the top newest one.
Right.
And honestly, because that main score is divided up between subscores of photo and video.
Right.
The P20 Pro had a really low video score because the video on that is not great, but the photo score was. I actually think the photo score alone was like 114 or something. So the video on the iPhone's definitely better. The photo, I don't know. I haven't done the head-to-head testing, but on average, I bet it'll bump it up pretty damn close because of that. But yeah, no, we have Mark Paul in the YouTube chat saying that they were doing a photo shoot with a client and they were using some DSLR photos, and they'll even use some of their iPhone XS Max photos, which we always hear, people saying like, oh wow, it's just as good as a DSLR, and in some ways, yeah, it definitely is. So, yeah, look for that. And we have the specific question about, is it worth it enough to upgrade from the 10? Would you buy it just
solely
for the camera? I mean, it's a big upgrade.
You'd have to really be a photo aficionado, but not enough to buy an SLR.
Yeah. I mean, would you dump $1,000 into a phone just for the camera? That's pretty hard.
Yes.
That's pretty hard. I mean, yeah.
Particularly when you're going from a maybe really good to great. I mean, it's not like the 10, whatever the heck it's called, takes great photos. I mean, there's no denying it. So you're not getting a tremendous leap if you go to the XS.
I feel like I went a tremendous leap from the 7 Plus to the.
For sure, so, that is.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to know that,
if you're moving a couple generations, you're really gonna say I had
one generation. If you're relying on it professionally, then you always want the best camera.
Sure.
I mean, but yeah, you can use it professionally. I don't know who's relying on it professionally.
Right. Well, that's my point.
Yeah,
it's like, that's when you would consider upgrading.
The one interesting thing about the XS is there's no other, so you look at the 8 brought wireless charging in the glass black. The 7 brought I don't remember something. Maybe Force Touch or something. Then the 5S brought Touch ID. Apple always kind of gave users a reason to upgrade from the prior generation to the current if by adding some kind of a new feature or something that people had to see. There's not really that here.
Right.
It's a better camera. It's a better chip. It's a bigger screen. I guess the Max.
The reason is the bigger screen.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Apple,
I guess that's the reason.
I mean, if you want a bigger screen and you want the best camera that's on an iPhone, I mean, I could definitely see that.
I mean,
and you have $1,100 in disposable income? Sure.
Yes. Apple.com, the first thing it says is "Welcome to the big screens."
Yeah,
that's what they're pushing is the bigger screen.
Really? Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
So once again, look for my camera testing hopefully next week, and then I'm going to compare it when the Pixel 3 comes out to the Pixel 3 and the P20 Pro over on PC World if you want to check it out over there. But I mean, I can definitely say it's a major improvement for sure.
Yes. Cool.
The Huawei has another phone, the Mate 20, also coming out soon.
Yeah.
So that might be better. Who knows?
And to keep going, Prizzy Blake, I don't know how to say that name. Why is the Apple AirPower wireless charger not released yet?
There are some people saying this is all behind the scenes and hearsay and stuff, but apparently they were having problems and somewhere even catching on fire.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much be assured that it's a major issue if they haven't released it in 12 months, or mentioned it for that matter.
So they just kind of done it under the rug. As Roman pointed out on launch day, the iPhone XS box actually says, 10s, excuse me. You can hook it up to your AirPower. So
they had all intentions of releasing
the instructional booklet.
The instructional pamphlet that comes in.
Weird.
It says AirPower.
There's a reference in 12.1, the beta, that references AirPower. So it's still a thing inside of Apple. Whether or not we'll ever see it or can buy it, who knows?
Right.
But as people have said, that people won't even speak about it off the record and stuff. And apparently the only thing is that some of the test units were catching on fire, and so they just kind of want to put under the rug.
It's notable that no one that I know of has come out with a charger that can do 3 devices at once.
Yes.
So
there's got to be something.
Yeah, this is next generation technology, and they just showed it to us too early, I guess.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, because that would be cool. I mean, there's wireless charging on a lot of phones I use. I don't really use it as much anymore as I used to, especially because battery life is just so damn good. Like at the end of the day, I'm okay just plugging it in. And
right, same here.
When battery life wasn't great, it was nice to be able to place it on something when I was at work.
While you're doing,
you know what I mean, and just hurry and pick it up. So. It's a little different, but I do like the idea of having multiple things on there. And didn't it show that you could see what the other, like if you had your AirPods, you could see on your phone, the AirPods are at this level.
Yeah, I could definitely see that the way they normally work. Yeah.
They
what do you call it? When Jason and we were talking in a DM about, covering it. And I was like, I'd be happy to, because we were thinking that maybe they would come out at this event. And I said, I'd be happy to buy one. But that's because that'd be great just on my nightstand to throw my Apple Watch, my iPhone, and AirPods just on the same thing. And I said, I'd love to try that out. So, the use for it would be definitely there. And that would be one really cool way to use the wireless charging is keep it on your nightstand, just throw everything on that pad. And, but it is a dream that is not ready for realization yet.
Well, Philip over on YouTube saying that their aunt is afraid to use a wireless charger because she fears that it's going to catch fire.
Well, apparently there's some justification for that.
I haven't heard many cases of that happening in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
even with the cheap ones.
I get it.
I'm a little worried about that too. Like I'm kind of new to the wireless charging thing, so yeah.
I'd be more afraid with 3 items than 1.
No. Yes, definitely. Yes.
What I am surprised Apple didn't kind of cut its losses and come out with a wireless charging stand just for the iPhone XS, because they would sell a ton of those.
Yes.
Yeah. Like that Logitech one that came out, or there's a rumored Pixel one coming out. Like, come out with a $100 wireless charging stand. They'll sell a boatload of them.
Yeah, because we do have a hub, right, of like best wireless chargers for your iPhone, and I mean it's dominated by third party.
It's all third party.
Yeah,
and even like the Samsung one works great, and the Mophie and things like that. Mm-hmm. Why not just come out with one for Christmas? Seems strange that they didn't.
Has Apple? I meant to check this, but Apple hasn't come out with a 10s Max version of their battery case, have they? I don't think they have.
I don't know. Good question.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Do they have the lightning dock? I guess it fits it anyway. Because they used to make that horrible thing for the 8. That thing was awful.
I don't know.
And they sold a ton of those too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is that like basically the same thing they use at the store?
It's like a little lightning cable. Yeah.
Yeah.
The iPhone, Apple's iPhone battery case. I have never seen somebody with that case.
No, I haven't either. Yes.
So
really, I feel like I saw some at the time.
I don't think I've ever seen. And being in San Francisco, you would think the chances of seeing that kind of case would be higher. But I don't think I've ever seen.
I see a lot of people with Apple silicon cases, but not with the battery packs. Yeah.
I saw someone yesterday with an iPhone, the new one, the XS, and I knew immediately. You know why? Because of the gold color. Like it's pretty. It's pretty striking. Like it's not like any other. Like there's lots of gold phones out there.
Yeah.
This one is very much like, it looks like it's almost like real. Like 14 karat plated gold.
I
very shiny and smooth. Yeah.
I actually do like it too. And Dan got the gold one as well. So you'll hear his thoughts next week.
Well, before they were kind of tacky, but now that it is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's one thing Apple always nails is the freaking color of these things. Like, it's always like we roll our eyes when they come out with it, but then we're like, oh my God, we have to have one. They're so cool.
Right. They just know how to make
They really do.
The tints.
I'd love to see how many color shades of gold they rejected to get to this one.
And with that gather round, they were, they were definitely, that was another thing that they were aiming at, emphasizing was that new gold color.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot to go back and look at that. So speaking of cases, when we did the unboxing last week, Roman and I did a live unboxing on YouTube. You can check that out. You did try on your old case, and there was just a little bit that you had to kind of push it to get back in.
Yeah.
Have we heard? Is that a bigger problem?
So Mike actually wrote a story about that. Yeah.
It's not a huge issue because most people who are going to be buying a 10S are going to be buying a 10S. Like I think the upgrades are going to be smaller. But if you are going from a 10 to a 10S, there's a bunch of case makers who are, I won't say warning, but they're saying, listen, you probably should buy a new case because the camera bump is like ever so slightly taller on the 10S. So it doesn't fit as snug. It could let, dirt and dust and whatever could get in there. It could scratch it and things like this. So the case makers I talked to, Spigen and I don't remember, ESR, maybe, I forget. I talked to a few of them and they all tested them. And the ones that are known to work, they're still selling. And then the other ones they're just redoing and they'll have them in a week or two.
Yeah. Yeah. So if your current iPhone 10 case has visible space around the camera, you're probably okay. Yeah. But like the case I had, the cutout was basically flush with the camera. So
it's a bit of a jerky move by Apple.
Fit, yeah.
Well, so and if you have a 10 if you have a 10 and you buy a 10S case, then you're fine. There's just going to be a little extra space.
Yeah, because it'll be bigger.
I guess
that's in theory.
It'll just be big. Yeah, a little more space. So yeah.
GG Apple.
Yeah. We did a poll this in regards to the cellular speed, which we talked about at the beginning of the show.
I forgot to bring that up.
So we asked iPhone 10s owners if they've noticed better cellular speed with their new phone. Of course, this is totally subjective. We didn't ask people
on Twitter.com.
Yeah, on Twitter. Of course, we were just asking if you thought you noticed it. Yeah, there's a thing called Twitter that people are doing.
Mastodon?
So, yes. Maybe we'll do Mastodon next week. 37% said they found that they got faster results or faster speeds. 14% said they got slower speeds. 49% said it felt the same.
Felt the same.
Honestly. Yeah. One user...
do we know what they were comparing it to? He's curious.
It was basically, it's the question was kind of open.
This is fairly unscientific,
Yeah, it's Twitter.
It's Twitter.
It's faster than my iPhone 4 for sure.
Yeah, never rely on Twitter to be scientific when you only have 200 something characters.
I mean, regardless, it is telling that half the people saw no difference.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a major thing. It's a little bit better.
You're holding
until we get to 5G nationwide, which is going to be at least 2 to 3 years. It's going to be the same.
One user, NatFXDA, said that they actually feel like that they have a 10X Max. They have a 10S Max. I am never going to get that right. And they actually say that they feel like LTE is slightly slower with a weaker signal, and the Wi-Fi is abysmal.
Oh.
You should probably go back to the Apple Store with that phone.
Yeah. Some people pointed out that it's iOS 12 that's making their phones faster, not necessarily the hardware. So, and that there's probably some truth in that.
Well, for older phones, absolutely.
Yeah, all older iPhones, iPhone that are compatible.
I have a 6 that is in desperate need of a battery, but I'm too lazy to go get it replaced. And once 12 got installed on it, it's noticeably quicker.
Nice.
Wow.
And it doesn't drag as much as it did.
Interesting. Well, I wonder if that would have saved Dan's 5S at the time. I'm just kidding.
Old.
No, I doubt it.
Jonathan Lyman on Twitter says that he sees a boost of roughly 50% using LTE.
Is that scientific?
So
50%?
From what?
Wow.
Right. He doesn't say what phone he had.
Does he have an
before.
iPhone 3GS?
Right. So, but for him,
50%, that's big.
Richard Flapper says he's noticed 30%. So, like I said, this isn't scientific. Who knows what phones they're using, and so they don't say what service they're using. Also, so, but yeah,
Hooray!
Weird.
So.
Well, the next poll has to be about Makeup Gate.
Right.
So.
And then we can ask people to post their picture.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
So.
I'm really interested. I'm very interested in that. All y'all need to do some comparisons. I want to see what they're doing.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's crazy if that's true.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I think that just about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 623. I'd like to thank Mike Simon on the remote. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks to Leif Johnson.
And thank you.
Thanks to our producer, the most important man in the room.
Nah,
Adam
don't
Patrick
worry.
Murray.
Don't worry. You'll get Dan back next week. He's better. He's better.
And we'd like to thank you, the audience. Thank you for participating in our show today. We'll be back again next week. We're our usual time, Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Or as close as we can get.
So as close to get. It's always about 10, about the top of the hour, usually a few minutes past that. Live on Twitter and YouTube. Check our website for details on the topics that we'll be talking about. If you guys want to suggest a topic, please do. Send us a tweet at Macworld. We're always looking for topics because,
it's hard.
There's only so many times we can talk about the iPhone.
Daniel says, great show today.
Thank you,
It was
Danielle.
fun.
Thank you.
It felt good.
Well, it was great because the audience.
Yeah,
the audience participation was pretty good.
Yeah, so those are always the better shows.
Are we sure these users aren't all Dan with different names?
So that's what it is. See, that's why he's the most important man.
Important. Yeah, he milks the chat.
So, anyways, that does it for this week's show. Thank you very much. See you next week.
See ya.